Hello, I'm Dango Rose. Welcome to the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening. The Mountaineer brings you the latest news of the Peak to Peak region, in print, online, through our podcast, social media, and special publications. Now, listen in to the latest news of the area with our local journalists. Hello, I'm Dango Rose, and this is the Mountaineer Podcast, where everybody's listening.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. In this week's episode, we visit with local music promoter and event manager Stephanie Andelman. She gives us the scoop on a summer season full of festivals and fun.
We hear this week's music mentions from Jamie Lammers, and special correspondent Marianne Rosen will share a special story about Madame Lou Bonch, the historic 19th century madam of Central City. Then, we interview Pamela Fleming, our local mountain dog whisperer, who shares some insight as to why environment can play such a big part in your dog's actions, reactions, and behaviors.
And for our final story, we speak to Inian Peltatiller with the band TAARKA. We talk about their upcoming show at the Jamestown Mercantile in Jamestown, Wednesday, June 15th.
But first, some news from your neighborhood.
Folks in Gilpin County looking for some summer fun can head over to the Gilpin Community Center. The calendar is full of activities for all ages, from swimming lessons to senior fit class. Go online to see a full list of events at gilpincounty.colorado.gov.
In just a few short weeks, Central City will be celebrating the town's most beloved madame. In the midst of the Colorado Gold Rush, Madame Lou Bonch opened a brothel to service the men coming through town to find their riches, but soon found herself offering medical care during a devastating tuberculosis outbreak that began in 1880. Beyond her success as a business owner, she was credited by her peers of the day for saving their city. Festivities begin at high noon on June 17th on the historic Main Street in Central City and will go until 8 p.m. There will be a Madame and Miners Ball, as well as the much-anticipated tuberculosis bed race. Our favorite peak-to-peak gambling town will be flush with food, drink, and live entertainment all day long at the annual Madame Lou Bonch Day celebration.
The town of Nederland, in coordination with Bohannan Houston, are excited to introduce the Nederland Housing Needs Assessment Project. The purpose of the project is to evaluate housing costs and needs in order to develop an understanding of how best to guide affordable housing policy and investments in the future, which in turn supports the needs of the Nederland community. Check out the interactive map on the Nederland Housing Needs Assessment website and share your thoughts on where you believe housing development is most appropriate within the community. There, you will also be able to share concerns, read other residents' comments, and drop a pin in areas you believe need to be avoided for development. You can find more information about the assessment in this week's issue of the Mountaineer newspaper, along with the link to get started.
The Mountaineer newspaper is accepting entries for our 2023 photo contest, Views from the Top. This contest is open to everyone living along the Peak to Peak, including canyon communities between Allens Park and Central City. We will be printing a select number of entries in the next It's Your Turn edition coming out later in June. Be sure to check our show notes for more information on how to submit your photo. You can also find a direct link to the contest in this week's edition of the Mountaineer newspaper.
Read more local news and feature stories in print and online at themountaineer.com.
And that's it for this week's news briefs. If you have something to share, you can send requests for submission to info@themountaineer.com. As long as it meets our community standards, we'll be sure to include it in a future episode. Brightwood Music has been serving the Peak-to-Peak region and beyond since opening in 2008. The full-service music store offers new and used instruments and will even repair the ones you've got. Go ahead and check them out on Facebook at Brightwood Music. Brightwood Music is the best music store with altitude across the Peak-to-Peak.
And now, for our lead story, Dango catches up with Stephanie Andelman, local music promoter and organizer of the upcoming Ned Jazz Wine Fest happening in August.
Hi, Stephanie. Thanks for joining us. Can you please introduce yourself for our listening audience?
Hi, I'm Stephanie Andelman.
So it looks like there's quite a bit going on this summer in Nederland. Can you give us a rundown on some of the events that are planned to happen?
Absolutely. Well, there is a mix of ticketed and free events, and I will get into July 1st, which in the month of July, we have July 8th is the Ned Gravel competition. That's throughout Netherlands gravel roads, and it has an after party with live music by Ghost Town Drifters, which is an up-and-coming bluegrass band, and they'll be playing as early as 11 a.m. until as late as 5:30 p.m. As people come in, they'll play sets, take a break, there'll be awards, and then they'll keep playing. So if you wander by Teen Center and Gershio Field, you'll see the riders come in and you'll hear live music. Following that is another free event downtown Netherlands, and it's a silent disco that we did during Netter Days. This has brought together a collective of businesses and individuals, and we are putting this on for a family free fun event where the headphones are given out to people. So you check in at a booth, you get your silent disco headphones. We have 3 booths of DJs. We have 3 of the brothers, Gilfish, Be Random, and next to them we have DJ Blue, and next to them we have a person who's played at Eldora, DJ Cal Mista, and that is 7 to 10 p.m. on July 14th, where you can dress up, dance all night, different genres from heavy house to disco and 80s music. Also in July, we have a Netherlands Farmers Market Festival. It's the second year of Party in the Peaks. Same area as the Farmers Market with East 2nd Street shut down like Harvest Fest. In this year, our headliner is Kind Hearted Strangers, and we have a special opener that's an all-star band of sorts with members from the No-Go Gilbillies, Fast Floyd, and Dead Fish Orchestra. And then we have an expanded market with many more vendors, activities, and dancing and music on a big stage thanks to Eldora.
So July seems to be pretty full. How about August? I know there's an event that you put on that you must be looking forward to.
My favorite event is an event that I founded and I organized, Netherlands Jazz and Wine Festival. It's the 2nd annual, and it is taking place in Chapita Park again, and it's the last Saturday of August, which is August 26th from 11 a.m. to 5 p.m. And we have music the entire time, all 6 hours. And the performers we have brought from Denver and throughout the state, as well as Los Angeles. Those performers are Wellington Bullings, which is a local Tony Mann's daughter. And Tony Mann is actually doing the VIP catering, so he can be right there as his daughter performs. Then in the middle spot, we have Sarah Mount in the Rushmores, and our own Otis Landy is playing bass in her band. And then our headliner is the great Bill Copper. He's playing as a quartet, and he is known well around these parts for playing acid jazz and being one of the Monday night acid jazz leaders in the early 2000s era.
Stephanie, why do you think Ned Jazz Wine has become such a popular event?
So beyond the music of Ned Jazz Wine, people are attracted because of the vendors. We have 20 booths that are pouring unlimited tastings of alcohol from local craft makers. From the wineries, the majority of the booths are obviously wineries. We have some distilleries, a brewery, a seltzery, as well as a cidery. And it's really fun to just taste flavors, and you can buy the bottles and the cans, what you love right there from the person who made it. We also have art vendors and artisan vendors that also encompass fine food, pairing food, and non-alcohol beverages. We also have 2 food trucks, and it's in a beautiful field with views of the Continental Divide. So people bring their camp chairs, they set up next to each other, they sit back, listen to the music, they get up when they feel like it, they can go and try different alcohols, meet local artists, and see many of their neighbors, and meet neighbors they didn't even know they had.
And do you still have tickets available or any open vendor spots?
So fortunately, word got out last year that we sold out, and we are in waiting list mode for vendors, both the alcohol and artisan. As far as the tickets, this year we have VIP tickets that were introduced, and there'll be a special area on the fishing platform by the pond. And we are more than halfway sold out for those VIP tickets, which come with about $200 value of benefits. And then the tickets to the event are only $40 for general admission. And again, they include 6 hours of live jazz, 40 vendors, unlimited tastings from all of the booths that have any kind of liquid to pour for you, and some amusing games, some sponsor booths, and a lot of seating to sit back and enjoy the day. We still have those tickets available, and we expect to be selling them through July.
And where's the best place to get tickets?
So you can purchase tickets by walking into Brightwood Music, or you can go to nedjazzwine.com, and you'll see the ticketing in the index. Click on it and then follow the directions, and you can buy up to 6 tickets per person.
Stephanie, you've been promoting music successfully in Nederland for more than several years now. What do you think is behind that success?
One thing I found, and it's been very obvious in a funky town like Nederland, is you can love the music and you can be so impressed by the skills of the performers, but actually doing the business side of it isn't a natural combination. There are business people who may not even care about what the content is of the music. And then there are music lovers who may not care about the business side. Somewhere you need in the middle to be effective, to book the music, collect the money for the music, promote the music, as well as respect and understand the music.
And is there anything else you'd like to share before we wrap up?
People think that Nederland doesn't have any music, any festivals anymore. And we do. And this proves it. The summer of events with downtown events that are free and family friendly, plus ones that are high caliber and you can look forward to, and you have to reserve your ticket in advance. It's back. Nederland is thriving with live music and special events again.
Thank you, Stephanie. We included links to some of the events Stephanie mentioned in our show notes, along with a link to the most recent Peak to Peak music calendar, printed each week in the Mountaineer newspaper and online. Now we go to correspondent Jamie Lammers, who will be delivering this week's Music Mentions.
And now for this week's Music Mentions. Head to Busey Brews, located at 70 East 1st Street in Nederland on Sunday, June 18th at 2 p.m. to see Meyer and Brightwood performing live. Head to the the Canyon Tavern, located at 32138 Highway 72 in Coal Creek Canyon on Friday, June 16th at 7 p.m. for a karaoke night, and on Saturday, June 17th at 6 p.m. to see Jordan Huey performing live. Head to the Gold Hill Inn, located at 401 Main Street in Gold Hill on Wednesday, June 14th at 6 p.m. to see Anya Hinkle and Billy Cardine performing live, on Friday, June 16th at 8 p.m. to see Mojo Mama performing live, on Saturday, June 17th at 6 p.m. to see Drew Peterson performing live, and on Sunday, June 18th at 6 p.m. to see Sturts performing live. Head to the Grand Z Casino, located at 321 Gregory Street in Central City on Friday, June 16th and 17th at 8 p.m. to see Mile High Groove Band performing live. Head to Howlin' Wind Brewing, located at 51A Main Street in Rollinsville on Saturday, June 17th at 5 p.m. to see Rocket Parade performing live. Head to the Jamestown Mercantile, located at 108 Main Street in Jamestown on Thursday, June 15th at 7 p.m. to see TAARKA performing live, on Friday, June 16th at 7 p.m. to see Deck and Hawk Band performing live, and on Sunday, June 18th at 12:15 p.m. to see Ashley Kendall Priest performing live. Head to JKQ Barbecue, located at 200 Gregory Street in Black Hawk on Friday, June 16th and 17th at 6 p.m. to see Boys of the Town performing live. Head to Knotted Root Brewing, located at 250 North Caribou Street in Nederland on Friday, June 16th at 6 p.m. to see Andrew McConaughey from Drunken Hearts performing live. You can also head there every Sunday at 4 p.m. for Jazz Sundays with Black Dog and Friends. Head to the Millsite Inn, located at 44365 Highway 72 in Ward on Tuesday, June 13th at 7 p.m. to see Faded Paisley performing live, on Friday, June 16th at 7 p.m. to see John Black Dog Rednell performing live, on Saturday, June 17th at 7 p.m. to see Iron Roots performing live, and on Sunday, June 18th at 4 p.m. for an open jam hosted by Dan Freeman. And finally, head to Very Nice Brewing Company, located at 20 East Lakeview Drive, number 112 in Nederland on Thursday, June 15th at 6 p.m. to see Celtic Music with the Gale, on Friday, June 16th at 6 p.m. to see Stephen Hoffman performing live, on Saturday, June 17th at 5 p.m. to see C.P. Meyer performing live, and on Sunday, June 18th at 5 p.m. to see Oral Elixir performing live. Did we miss you, your venue, or your performances? Want to submit your music listing in the Peaks Peak area? Do you have updates to your business or to your performances? Please call 303-810-5409 or email info@themountaineer.com to be included in the next print edition or the next podcast of The Mountain Ear.
Thank you, Jamie. Now let's drop in with special correspondent Marianne Rosen, who shares a fascinating tale about Madame Lou Bonch, the historic 19th century Madam of Central City.
With Madame Lou Bunch Day coming up on June 17th in Central City, it seemed that some background was in order. In the 19th century, stories of gold abounded, and many, mostly men, traveled west in search of riches. Colorado was one of the destinations that miners came to, panned for gold, and settled. Towns sprang up to accommodate the miners and others who had come to Colorado looking for gold. Central City was one of these towns. Founded in 1859 during the Pikes Peak Gold Rush, it became known as the richest square mile on earth. Overseas, paralleling this time, Louisa Tulin was born on February 14, 1857. As Central City was establishing itself, Louisa was growing up in Sweden before moving to Denver, Colorado around 1877. For most women who moved into Western towns, options were limited. Although there might be a school teacher or perhaps a nurse in some towns, most women got married and had a passel of children. The other recourse for some women was to get into the business of prostitution, and if successful, become a madam and perhaps own a brothel. It was this route that Louisa Lou Tulin took. She began working as a prostitute for Madame Maggie Silk, working for her until 1884, when she herself became a madam. She used the name Lulu Davis professionally. During these years, Lou married a gambler named George Bunch, who turned out to be very abusive. She also bore and lost a child. After the death of her child, the now Lou Bunch, who also went by Georgie Bunch, moved and kept a so-called boarding house. She became an independent, strong, determined woman and a very successful madam. With her success, in 1899, Lou Bunch bought a house on Pine Street in Central City and turned it into a brothel for the miners looking for gold. Located on a main street and next to the mines, it was a prime location. She was the most successful madam in the area. Lou also began to involve herself in the town and supported many local organizations and businesses. Despite her occupation, she became an important and respected member of the community. Although prostitution was technically illegal, a blind eye was turned due to all of Lou's support and involvement. By the 1910 census, Lou is shown as a widow living in her home with two women listed as prostitutes, making her the last madam in town. In the early 1900s, when a tuberculosis epidemic hit Central City, legend had it that Lou Bunch turned her house into a makeshift hospital in order to care for sick miners. She found herself playing the role of nurse. She was credited with saving the city by saving the miners. A statewide alcohol ban in 1915 forced Lou to close her brothel. She sold the house in Central City and moved back to Denver. In 1920, Lou moved in with her old boss, Madam Maggie Silk, who she cared for until Maggie's death in 1929. Lou Bunch moved briefly to Aurora in 1930 to become a housekeeper for Joseph Smith until his death that same year. Once again, she moved back to Denver and lived on a pension she received from Central City. Lou died on January 19, 1935, and was buried in an unmarked grave at Fairmount Cemetery. In 2011, the Reserve Casino paid for a headstone in her honor, and this year celebrates the 49th anniversary of Central City's Day of Tribute for Madam Lou Bunch.
If you are a visual artist in the Peak to Peak area and want to include your studio, gallery, or workspace in the fall Peak to Peak Studio Tour, then go to themountaineer.com and sign up today. It is free to join, and artists will showcase their finest work to visitors and art lovers in all autumn splendor. Again, to sign up, visit themountaineer.com and follow the links to the Peak to Peak Studio Tour. Now, before we get to our final segment, Dingo interviews local resident Peggy Fleming. Peggy is a dog whisperer of sorts. Her background working in shelters has given her a unique perspective on how to create the best environment for dog and owner, especially when that favorite fur buddy might be misbehaving.
So, Peggy, tell us how you first started working with rescue dogs and shelters.
Sure. So I started about 7 years ago. I've always owned dogs, and we lost our beloved dog that we had for 14 years, few years. And after his passing, it really kind of pushed me into opening my heart and door to the rescue community. So I started working actually Colorado and Arizona, and just worked with the rescue groups and the shelters, specifically with dogs that were on death row. Because of behavioral issues, controlling issues. They may be wild dogs, feral dogs that had never been around humans before. But they became just a really deep passion of mine because they're murdered at high rates. Because they're those are the dogs that are put to sleep very quickly because of behavioral issues.
And how did this experience give you the insight to be able to take on the bigger issues that sometimes arise with owning a dog?
I really began to understand what it means for a dog to have a behavioral issue, whether if it's deemed aggressive, if it's deemed, where the dog's just agitated or, hyper, things like that. Because typically when dogs have behavioral issues, you hear people just putting that label of aggressive on them. And that is all environmental. So it's getting through those kind of things, understanding really what's underneath that dog, and then being able to define what kind of training do they need.
And do you charge a fee for this training service?
I have never charged. When I see somebody post a dog on Facebook that says we got to get rid of them because they're aggressive and they're this and that, and I know the shelters will put them down immediately, I want to go in and say, let's show you how to work with your dog. Let's show you how to create an environment that allows your dog to show up differently. And I'm just super passionate. I love them. Like I said, I have 6 of my own.
Peggy, do you also do training outside of just dealing with behavioral issues?
Yeah, I will train dogs as well. And there's different ways that we train. Like we have a pack of dogs. We have 6 in our group. And sometimes we do pack training depending on personality, individual training. So they're all so very different. And it's really being able to meet them. And what you find most in our human community is we're super uneducated about dogs. Like we have this idea that you get a dog, you bring it home, and it's just supposed to blend into a family. And you're talking about an entire different being that's had an entirely different and maybe troublesome lifestyle. So our goal as owners is understanding, learning how they communicate in their environment when they're stressful, because the term aggressive is just used way too aggressively. Most of the time you have reactive dogs out of fear, and those things can be taken care of very, very, very quickly.
And even though on occasion a rescue might have some challenges adjusting, you still believe they do make great companions.
I will rescue dogs out of a shelter before I'd ever get a dog anywhere else. I think this breeding thing, I'm 100% against breeding, and all needs to stop until we get our shelters under control. But when you decide that you want to help a dog that has issues from a previous life as a family, they were they use them as fighting dogs, they were locked up in shelters. There's a commitment there, and that commitment is understanding the dog. The dog doesn't need to understand you. You have to understand the dog. And then you have to create the environment around it. Part of having dogs is understanding that environment is the biggest predictor of a dog's behavior.
Peggy, do you volunteer at any of our local rescues or just ones in Arizona?
Not in state, because we really have our crap together in state. Really, when you look at other places and how we're doing in shelters and rescues, Colorado is a dog-loving state, so it's easier to place dogs here than it is in others. So I primarily focus, as far as my rescues go, Arizona, and if I see somebody that needs help in Texas, or a dog crosses my screen and I just went myself was just going, I got to do something for this dog.
And can you tell people the best way to reach you if they're needing help or advice on any kind of training?
The best way to reach me is by phone or text at 970-215-7907, or by social media, Facebook, I'm Pamela Fleming. And my email address is pam@ondemand, T as in Tom, D as in dog.com.
Thank you, Peggy. We are lucky to be in community with so many dog lovers, and it's good to know there are resources available to help keep canines and their human beings living happily together. And that was TAARKA playing Life Keeps Getting More and More Complicated off of their legendary album, The Martian Picture Soundtrack. Up next, Cynthia interviews Enyan Peltatiller of the Colorado-based, world-inspired chamber folk trio, TAARKA.
So, Enyan, can you start by introducing yourself?
Hi, Enyan from the band TAARKA.
And tell us about your show coming up in Jamestown.
Yeah, so we're really excited to come back to the Jamestown Mercantile, which we've been playing there every so often for years. We love it there. It's always such a good time. And we're doing that next Thursday, June 15th.
So we hear you will have an addition to the usual TAARKA duo.
That's right. Yeah, we're going to be performing as a trio and the family band version of TAARKA, which we first trotted out last summer. We did a tour out to the Pacific Northwest to play at String Summit and did a bunch of shows on the way, including the Rose Festival in McCall, Idaho. And we brought our son on that tour, and it was super fun playing with him.
And ASAP started playing music at a very early age, but how did he come to playing bass?
Yeah, he played violin from the age of 3 till he was 13, and then we were David and I teach at music camps, and we were out teaching at the camp that Coleman Smith from Rapid Draft runs out in Buena Vista, and we brought ASAP with us, and he plays fiddle and mandolin and guitar. He plays all the instruments that we play, but he didn't want to take classes with us, so he said, "I'm going to try the bass." And he took to it like, that's his instrument. Like, he just clicked with that instrument so quickly and knew what to do so intuitively. It's been really cool to see.
And Enyon, what's your experience like playing together as a family?
It's wonderful. He's been hearing our music since before he was born. So, definitely there's a learning curve. We throw some curveballs in our music, and so there's some stuff he's had to study up on and whatnot. But he's been very nice about that. Not a typical teenager in that way. He's been pretty cool about it. And but then he knows what the music does, and he's got some good and unique ideas about what his role in the music should be.
As I understand it, your home base is now in Denver, but TAARKA actually has some local music roots that go back pretty far. In fact, you have an almost family connection to another favorite local mountain-born band, Elephant Revival.
Yeah, we did. And in the early, when that band was really first getting together, they all lived with us. And Django actually was the person that suggested the name that we ended up naming our son. So, yeah, at that time when we first got to town and they were first getting their thing together, we were all sort of a little community.
Thank you, Inyan. We know a lot of people will be really happy to see TAARKA playing again in our peaks. Again, the show is at the Jamestown Mercantile Wednesday, June 15th, and starts at 7 p.m. That concludes this week's episode of the Mountain Air Podcast, where everybody's listening.
Visit our website at www.themountaineer.com to read more information about today's guests. Pick up a copy of this week's print edition of The Mountaineer at newsstands all across the Peak to Peak. I'm Dango Rose.
And I'm Cynthia Davis. Thank you for listening.
You name it, we've got it.
Up here in the mountains, things are weird.
And that's it for our show. Subscribe online to get more access to more news, weekly updates to our community calendar, and a link to our YouTube channel by visiting themountaineer.com. Be sure to use the coupon code PODCAST when subscribing for a 10% discount, only available to our listeners. If you are in the local Peak-to-Peak area, be sure to pick up a print edition of The Mountaineer at a local business. I'm Dango Rose. Thank you for listening.